In last week's gospel, we had the idea of preparation, and preparation was defined by the virgins who came out to meet the bridegroom and the bride. The idea was needing to be prepared because you're not sure when the wedding would start. So you wanted to be one of the well wishers. You wanted to be one of the ones to give congratulations and to give thanks to God for bringing them together. So you wanted to be one of the first. So you had the ones who were wise, they brought flasks of oil. The ones who were foolish thought that they didn't have enough oil, so they were looking at themselves. And so instead of coming into the bridegroom and meeting the bridegroom and bride, they didn't want to do that because, after all, they would have no oil, they would look foolish, and so forth. So again, the thought was kind of on them. In today's gospel, what we have is that we have the idea of the tenant farmers, which is another one, again, that Jesus uses to give that idea of preparation. So you have the farmer, lends it out to tenant farmers, gives them 75, gives them a talent, 1 talent, 5, and 10. A talent was about 75 pounds, so usually silver, that they could go and buy and trade with. And so what he does, he said he leaves after a long time. He wants to settle the accounts. The interesting ones, the ones who had the 5 and the 10, they were the ones who were ambitious. They went out and they made use of their talents, and so they doubled their talents. The one who had the 1 talent was interesting because he basically did not like the master at all. He basically said, "You're hard, you're mean, you're lazy. You've told us to do all your work. You're just lazy, and basically that you're demanding. You plant where you do not. You harvest where you do not plant. You gather where you did not scatter. So, in other words, you're a thief." And so all these things about the master. So I guess the question is, would he have ever been able to share the master's joy, hating the master as much as he did? And so we can kind of say, boy, that's kind of harsh, that he has the 1 talent, he gives it back to him. But would he really be able to share the master's joy? And so one of the things about talents is that we can kind of look at this as the time of Jesus, that Jesus comes. There's a long time. People can use their talents, not only their natural talents, but we also think of the spiritual gifts that God gives us. Those gifts of teaching and administration, those charismatic gifts of healing and speaking in tongues, interpretation, to be able to look at the signs of the times with desire and looking at the signs of the times. So all those kind of things that God gives us, and then we're not to to put them up on the shelf, or not to, as the Corinthian church did. In the church in Corinth, what they would do is that they would say, aha, look at how wonderful I am, what God gave me. So using it not as the building up of the church, but again, to think about their own self. So this is really what we think about in there. So when the master comes, he says, you wicked and lazy servant, take the talent away from him and give it to the one who has 10. What little he has will be taken away. And so that he who has more will be given, who will grow rich, but the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away, and throw him into the darkness outside, where there'll be wailing and grinding of teeth. Again, the problem is with that is that he was really never able to enter into the master's joy. So what we have in a way are in preparation are really kind of 2 things. One is that it kind of represents the ones who, in the past, with the 10 virgins, the wise and the foolish, they were Christian. They we think about Christ, we think about it. We come when we can, but there are all kinds of busyness. There's all kinds of things that kind of take us away. we'll be back someday, we'll be faithful, but for right now, it just is not in our schedule. We just don't have the time. So that's kind of that idea of, thinking about self, thinking about, I just don't have time. I'd like to, but I just don't have it. So again, kind of putting God on that scale of, kind of cleaning out the garage. It's something, yeah, I know it needs to be done, but just don't have the time for it and things like that. In today's gospel, what it has is much more like many people today, an unfortunately increasing number today, that they really don't like God, they don't want God, they don't want to hear about God. And so what do we do in those situations? I think one of the things that we do is basically to encourage those who are in the first category, the ones who are kind of, I don't have time, I'd like to, but I don't have time, to really begin to encourage them to maybe think about coming back to church on a regular basis, encouraging them, challenging them. What do we do with the one who really hates God? Again, I think what we do is that we try to get that in, try to, pray for them, especially pray that God would bring a person or circumstance into their life where they would see that need for God, that they would see that need, and they would not just be like, I'm not doing anything for God. I hate God. I don't like God. I don't want to deal with God. All these kinds of things, that if we pray for them and we continue to love them and to encourage them if possible, if there's any kind of encouragement, any kind of a sign that maybe they're thinking about God, to encourage them further in that way. So those are kind of some of the things that we can do. But again, for ourselves, coming into the Advent season, it's really for us a time to really think about preparation. It's really a time to help us to come to that conclusion. How am I done during the past year? Is there something that I need to work on with God's help? What is it that I need to do? How can I get closer to God in the coming year? Thanks, and God bless.